moving quickly this morning, and before we get started, I'd like to introduce our team to you. We have Chelsea Harrison with Ralph's, Luisa Seves with Northgate Markets, Levi Wingo with Rayleigh's. We have Valerio Chiarotti with Terravino, and Nathan Dorshuk with Niagara Bottling, and I'm Nancy Liebold with Winco Foods. And we're Team Divergent Distribution, and today we're going to talk with you about the future of our industry. So as we've been talking this morning about the future of our industry, I'm sure a lot of you have some thoughts in your head about what you think that is going to look like, and whether it's going to be digital marketing that is going to be the key to our success, or maybe it's harnessing big data to connect with our customers better, or maybe a new loyalty program that will ensure that our customers are rewarded for staying in our stores. But I'm here to tell you that there is a much more strategic issue, a fundamental issue when we're discussing the fate of our industry, and that's our supply chain, because the fate of our industry is relying on an unhealthy supply chain. Healthy supply chain performance is critical to not only the profitability of our industry, but also the very viability of our industry. If we don't have any goods to sell our customers, we will struggle to survive. And we can't forget our reliance on the trucking industry, because it doesn't matter whether you have 2 stores or 2,000 stores, whether you're a CPG or a broker. Everything that we have to sell, whether it's in our stores or online, relies on the efficiency and the affordability of our trucking industry. And we gave our supply chain a checkup, and we found that there were a lot of areas of concern, a lot of symptoms of an illness. We are expecting increasing costs over the next 10 years. Things that you can expect that you will see an increase in. For example, the American Society of Civil Engineers says that American businesses can expect an incremental $430 billion in transportation costs over the next 10 years, simply because we have an inadequate infrastructure. 28% of greenhouse gases are a result of the transportation sector, so you can certainly expect that we'll continue to see increasing costly legislation. And as you've probably already experienced, we're seeing big changes in our workforce, which will also impact our supply chain. And in particular, it is increasing traffic congestion and our truck driver shortage that will increase our costs in the future, and we're going to have to find ways to minimize those costs. And so today we're going to take a look at alternative fuels, and electricity is the most viable option in conjunction with driverless technology to provide the solutions and to help minimize the impact of our supply chain deteriorating. And so we're going to share with you what we found during our supply chain checkup, and then we're going to ask you to go back and talk to your supply chain management teams to assess your current fleet replacement schedule, to budget for upcoming capital expenditures, and to lobby for needed legislation that we'll need to have in place in order to remain successful in the future. We need to prepare ourselves now, or it will be too late to make the changes necessary down the road. Because we found several symptoms of an illness, and today we're going to talk with you about what we discovered. And then we're going to talk about how, if we don't address those issues now, that there will be costly consequences to that. So today we're going to have Levi come and talk with us a bit about what those severe symptoms are that we discovered. And then we're going to talk with you about how electricity and driverless technology coupled together will put us on the road to recovery. But I'm kind of getting ahead of myself. So Levi, can you come talk with us about those symptoms? And for the rest of you, you might want to buckle up, because we're going on a ride.
So the first symptom that we detected is congestion. Congestion accounts for $27 billion in cost to U.S. businesses every year. And this is being driven by 2 major issues. The first being urban population growth. 85% of Americans live in or around an urban population center that's experiencing growth. The next issue is our aging infrastructure. The Department of Transportation put out their yearly report card this year, and it gave our infrastructure system a D+ rating. 44% of our highways are congested today, and 65% of our roads are in poor condition. And this is all leading to increased legislation. Things locally like curfew restrictions put in place to protect those neighborhoods and keep them quiet at night. So it's restricting access to our trucks to get to stores in night and morning hours. And then if we look globally, things like low emission zones and time restrictions where commercial vehicles can't be on the roads during certain parts of the day. This is all leading to restricting access to our stores further and causing increased congestion, which leads us to our more severe symptom. And that's the virus that we've detected in the industry, and that's the driver shortage. Viruses grow and spread very rapidly, and if you talk to executives in the transportation sector today, they'll tell you that the biggest issue on their radar in the next 10 years is this driver shortage. Now, the driver shortage is being driven by a key issue, and that's that change in workforce that Nancy alluded to. Baby boomers are entering their retirement age, and the average age of a truck driver is 55 years old. And as millennials come in as the biggest workforce group, they're coming in and they're not looking for jobs in distribution. They're looking for jobs in technology and healthcare and constructions. They have higher levels of education than others. So what's this leading to? Well, this has led us to the driver shortage that we have today of 35,000 drivers nationally. If this trend continues, in just 5 years, we'll be at 239,000 drivers short. So what's the sector doing to combat this? Well, they're raising wages to be more competitive with other industries, about 6 to 7% per year. So that means that the driver that makes $38,000 today, in just 10 years, will nearly double to $75,000. How many of our businesses can afford to double the cost of truck drivers in just 10 years? At the end of the day, if we don't have drivers to deliver our products, we don't have products in our stores and nothing to sell on the shelves. So to give you a glimpse of what the future of our treatment plan looks like, let's go to Valerio.
Well, it looks like a really gloomy outlook here. I think we need to create an alternative strategy for our industry. On the road to recovery, we found several solutions for our problem, just to mitigate the driver shortage and the problem of congestions. We analyzed alternative energies such as ethanol, hydrogen, CNG, and any kind of biofuels and hybrids and electricity. And we really believe actually that the solution is 100% electricity. 100% electricity gives us several benefits. We have reduction of cost, for example, and maintenance. We have a positive environmental impact, and we have a reduction of pollution. We minimize the downtime, and the most important thing, we decrease the noise, so we can sleep during the night. Another important factor in our research is the driverless technology. Driverless technology is not in the future, it's here. Part of our industry actually is using driverless technology, and we really believe that, again, will be a great asset for cost reduction, maintenance, but most important thing, safety. But let's move forward with Luis with the first treatment to recovery.
So the first stage of the treatment that will bring us back to the road of recovery is by using electricity as the alternative energy option moving forward. The benefits that electricity has to offer will combat the symptoms that transportation has been suffering as a result of a deteriorating infrastructure. So what are those benefits? Benefit number one has to do with fuel efficiency. Electrical engines are 3 times more fuel efficient than internal combustion engines. If we do decide to upgrade to an all heavy-duty electric truck, there is going to be an incremental cost of $32,000. However, based on our research, the projected fuel savings are going to be around $30,000. That's not by considering all the congestion costs that the industry has incurred. Reason number two, electricity will impact less the environment. And there are new legislations on the horizon that are going to force the industry to move in this direction. Last year, President Obama mentioned that the EPA is going to be working and implementing higher and stricter standards, miles per gallon standards, for heavy-duty trucks, and those are projected to be in place by 2016. If we start preparing today and start analyzing electricity as a viable option moving forward, we will be better prepared. And the third reason and benefit is the quiet technology. Electric engines don't make any noise. imagine delivering product at night when congestion is less and we have greater access to our retailers or to our warehouses. That's going to help us reduce that $27 billion congestion cost that we mentioned earlier. So it opens a new possibility of delivering at night. And we will not be violating any ordinances or the curfew laws because no noise will be made. But it's also important that as we talk about electricity, we're also going to be adopting a diet that's not only affordable, but it's going to be cheaper and sustainable. If we compare electrical costs compared to diesel, which is the most common fuel type used currently, costs have been very, very stable. Whereas diesel has fluctuated for the last 14 years, electricity, although it has increased, it has been relatively stable. And just to put things into more perspective as well, from a cost-saving perspective, based on our research, the industry last year used 2.5 billion gallons of diesel. Given the current price of diesel, that equates to $6.95 billion in fuel costs. However, if we were to make the switch today to electricity, assuming the 2.5 billion usage in fuel, that cost will be of almost $3.2 billion. We're not talking about a 10, 20, 30% reduction. We're almost talking about a 50% reduction in fuel costs. So by giving an electrical charge to our diet, we're not just going to be shedding off pounds in the short term. It's also going to be for the long term, and it's going to be sustainable. Now it's critical that we also address the second symptom, the shortage of drivers. And for that, we have the miracle vaccine, which Nathan will talk about in stage 2 of the treatment.
The miracle vaccine. Driverless technology is here. The evolution is underway. We see it in the commercial airline industry with the autopilot features. We see it in railways. It's been in mining since 2008. Now, major car companies are taking special notice to this, and they're investing heavily in the research and development. Even Google is behind this. Companies like Daimler, Nissan, Volvo are all underway to launch vehicles in the very short-term future. Daimler, for example, by the year 2025 is looking to launch the first driverless truck. Volvo has a real aggressive plan by trying to launch a fleet of 100 vehicles in Gothenburg, Sweden by the year 2017. And Nissan has teamed up with NASA, hoping to launch the first autonomous fleet by the year 2020. Now, I've got a brief video here I want to share with you about a company named Peloton. Peloton's developed a software-based solution for trucks to team up on the freeway and basically draft together to lower wind resistance and drive better fuel economy. This has a potential savings of $6 billion in fuel costs. Let's go ahead and take a look at the video.
Southbound trucker coming up on marker 77. You copy?
Copy, southbound truck. I got you in my mirrors.
Would you like to link up?
Okay to link.
We are linked.
Four-wheeler, cut us off. Are you okay back there?
Yeah, it's all good back here.
So this technology is here today. Imagine where we'll be at 10 years from now. Now it's time for that needed shot in the arm. The solution to our driver shortage is driverless trucks. that has a potential cost savings of $93 billion. That's a big number, folks. The next thing it helps us with is carrier utilization. Under our current constraints, drivers are only capable of driving an 11-hour workday. With driverless trucks, we can make more on-time deliveries around the clock, 24/7. We'll have better efficiencies and those much-needed on-time deliveries. The next thing it does is it decreases the accidents. This is another big number, $36 billion annual. That's more than just a number. There's human lives behind that number that are being saved and protected through this technology. So as we've seen, this driverless technology is better, faster, cheaper, and long-term. I'll now transition over to Chelsea, who will talk to us about our optimistic prognosis.
So as we had talked about, our diagnosis for our industry was gloomy, but we actually have a very optimistic prognosis. If you take a look at the screen, all the costs associated with a diesel truck today, it costs our companies $1.68 per mile to get those trucks from our warehouses to our stores. In the future, by eliminating the fuel costs and the driver costs that are associated with trucking, we can bring that cost all the way down to 81 cents per mile. Now imagine taking your transportation costs and cutting them in half. What would you do with that money? I know that we would take that money and we would reinvest it back into where it's important, back into our customer. And that's where we've come up with this great aftercare plan, because the grocery industry has been known for great healthcare, and now we've had this aftercare plan for everyone today. These are the things that we're going to be asking you to do immediately so we can prepare ourselves for the future. So take a look at number one. We've seen with electrical technology that we can reduce our fuel costs and that we can also open up many windows for deliveries. I know I've hated a curfew ever since I was young, and sometimes they're very difficult to deal with now in the grocery industry. But the biggest thing is we don't want to disturb our communities. So what we're asking is that we start soundproofing our docks. This material can already, in some stores, is already in place. But we want to make sure that we seal off those docks so that we don't disturb the communities and that we can make these deliveries at nighttime when it's less congested. We can get our trucks off the road during the busiest time, and we can get them into our warehouses, into our back docks at the most convenient time of the day. Number two is going to be communication. We have to communicate this with our partners, whether it's internal, whether it's external, whoever your transportation partners are, we need to let them know what our needs are for the future so that we can start communicating now and making these options viable for the future. And lastly, this is for any of the companies that have labor contracts. We do need to start reviewing those labor contracts now to anticipate any reactions in the future. What we're coming up with is a solution. We do see that there is a driver shortage. So what we're offering is a solution to this problem so that we can keep our industry viable. So we always want to take any preventative measure that we have and carry it forward so that way we can still be sustainable. So after we take a look at our aging infrastructure and this aftercare plan of things that we need to do right now, this is actually our 5-year follow-up plan. So these are the things that we need to be doing in the next 5 years that are going to keep our grocery industry sustainable for the next 20, 25, 35 years. So assess, budget, and lobby. Number one, assess. We need to assess the current fleet that we have in our companies. This doesn't mean only the trucks, but also the truck drivers. As we talked about, the average truck driver is 55 years old, and this number is actually climbing. In the meantime, what we want to do is, while we're seeing that gap, we've talked about the evolution of driverless trucks. It's not going to be here tomorrow, but that technology is coming. So while that technology is coming, we need to make sure that we can keep drivers in our trucks and to our stores. So we possibly might have to hire or outsource from different companies or hire temporary workers to fill that gap in the meantime. Number two, we need a budget. Budget for our replacement vehicles. Now, I want you to remember that the average life of a truck is 4 years. So we have to replace these vehicles anyway. So what we're saying is when we replace these vehicles, we need a budget for the electric technology because this is going to open up the doors. And then we can evolve into the driverless technology as it gets here. And lastly, this is one of the most important things, is we need to work together as a grocery industry. And our voice is going to be much louder as a team than it is as one. We need to lobby together so that we can lift those restrictions that we see. We do business in so many different counties, so many different cities. The restrictions that we see for curfew are different across all of those platforms. So what we need to do is together ask, as long as our companies are not disturbing our communities and our customers, number one, that as long as we comply with this quiet technology and we're not disturbing anybody, that they allow us to deliver in the nighttime so that we can free up our trucks during the daytime and have them run longer during those times that we actually need them. So as we took a look at our aging infrastructure and this increase that we're seeing in the driver supply shortage, we know that we need to do something to keep our supply chain healthy. Because plain and simple, our customers come to our stores because they love our products. And we need to give them those products. We need to make sure that those products are on the shelves for when they walk in, and it's not a disappointment. And the way we're going to do that is with this preventative care plan that we've come up with you today. So we want to thank you so much for your time today and open up the floor for any questions.
Got to be questions. This is exciting stuff. Thank goodness, Bob. Thank you for that. Raise your hand.
Pretty cool. I mean, when you think about the airline industry, when you think about even the airline industry, whatever this says, the pilots actually don't fly the plane for more than 7 minutes. The rest of it's autopilot. So you think about what's going on now and translate that to the road transportation and trucking. A couple questions. First of all, are there any like DOT regulations or whatever it might be that stops you from doing it, or do you have to wait until this becomes mainstream before you can actually implement a plan like this? Second question is relative to cost payback, investment, ROI. Actually, there's a third question. Does it also change the skill set that's going to be necessary to be a truck driver, or who's going to operate this? Because there's still going to have to be some human interaction regardless, just like there are for airlines. You know, I'd imagine it would be the same for trucking. So those three questions.
Levi, do you want to take the first question?
So for the first question, actually right now in 4 states, it's legal to have a driverless car on the roadways. So yes, that will change as the technology becomes more prevalent. So there is that restriction, but we do see that opening up. California is one of the biggest ones that is actually available to be in the state. And with all the testing that's going on and the amount of companies that are backing this, for instance, Walmart has a fleet of electric vehicles right now. So with that power behind it, we do see that those restrictions will change very, very quickly as the need comes. And then for your second question, I would actually turn that over to Luis.
In terms of the ROI, there's no exact number right now, but however, based on our research that we've done, it was the incremental cost of $32,000. And this is just today, right now. As technology continues to advance, that number should continue to mitigate and shrink. Just for example, and I'm going to take this back to the regular consumer automobile sector. A couple years ago, we had the Nissan Leaf, which is just 85 miles, still relatively new. But a couple years ago, as moving forward, today we have now the Tesla, which is 500 miles, which is 500 miles. The tank has that range. And also, according to this week, also we have Walmart partnering with Peterbilt. And it just shows that those costs are going to, moving forward, should start getting decreased, and those numbers, ROI the payback should be sooner rather than later.
Yeah, that's but it's an investment in the fleet you have to make, though, right?
Correct.
I didn't see that was calculated in here. That's why.
Sorry, based on just the electric cost, because we don't have a cost to the driverless piece yet because it's so new.
Right.
Just based on the electric cost,
Right.
there's a $32,000 incremental cost, meaning that's what your truck would cost more than it is today. But if you go over the life of the truck, you have $120,000 payback in fuel savings. So the return on investment would be a little over a year, just based on what today's information tells us. But Luis was alluding to, it's going to get less and less over time as the technology advances.
Yeah, and the third question that I had, I think is most interesting if you're trying to look futuristic, because if you're talking about doubling the salaries, if you will, of truck drivers and not wanting to pay from that perspective, then at the same time, it forces you to implement both, you know, the driverless as well as electrical. And when it comes to driverless, it has to change, if you will, the landscape of who you hire as drivers. And how do we go about that?
Yeah, Bob, that's a good question. So, like you said, with the autopilot feature in the commercial airline industry, it's 7 minutes for a pilot to take it off and make sure it lands, right? Same thing with the trucks, though. The numbers we were looking at was almost a 2/3 reduction in drivers needed. But you'd still need drivers to navigate tight spaces, perform maintenance on the trucks if there's a flat tire or a motor breakdown. But also you would need, with the upgrade in technology, a smarter driver to work on that software. So if that kind of helps answer your question.
I have a question. I thought you guys did a great job of kind of presenting a case for change, but let's take driverless trucks, which blow my mind, right, off the table. And you're speaking to folks that have, hundreds, literally probably thousands of trucks on the road today. What would you say in the next, let's give it 5-year time frame, would you recommend to them to kind of address the issues that you highlighted at the beginning of the presentation?
I'll take that one. So the average lifespan of a truck is about 4 years. So you're on a regular schedule for replacing those trucks. Probably the first step would be to start investigating the electric hybrid option for those drivetrains so that you can test the waters. So instead of changing your entire fleet down the road, converting them from diesel to electric, you could have just a few trucks and just start making a small transition period. We talked with the gentleman who spearheaded for Freightliner their electric truck. They just in March had announced their future truck of 2025 and rolled that out. And Freightliner has put all their chips in on driverless technology and this electric hybrid. And they are talking about finding ways to just start companies with just small steps moving towards that. They're also challenged by finding people who can work on those engines. And so we need to, going back to Bob's question, we need to roll in the piece where we're training our mechanics also to work on those new technologies.
Thank you.
Thank you, Team Divergent Distribution.